Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Grenada Matters with my co-host, Earl Maitland. Earl, how are we doing?
I'm fine, man. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. I'm
How
great.
was
I'm
how was everything? All right.
time
Um,
zones. So, what's the subjects for this evening?
well, after the you have the introduction queued up,
The introduction. Which introduction? We're live.
the countdown.
No, we're
You have the
live.
countdown queued up.
We're live already.
Okay.
No
Right.
count.
No countdown. How was my Wi-Fi today? It's good.
It's all good. You're good. You're good to go.
Okay. So basically, um, we're here again once again to speak about situations which are happening in Grenada, and most of which are very disturbing. And we would like to see a lot of drastic changes in the way that things are happening. We do not want things to get any worse than they are at this present time. Recently, we have had, in the last few months, I should say, we have had three police shootings um, since the COVID period. One was a national footballer, a gentleman from the parish of St. John. Then we have had one, a gentleman from Fontenoy in St. George. And the third and most recent one would have been on Friday, I believe, on Young Street in the Central Business District, which is in town. Unfortunately, that gentleman who was shot on Friday, Mr. Regis, has passed away. Moments later, based on what I understand at the General Hospital, and this is something that we aim and we wish could be eliminated from our society, seeing that Grenada is so small and everyone knows everyone and everyone is almost related to everyone. We believe that in order to eliminate such an ill from our society, we need to better the relationship between our police officers and the civilians. So the question is, how do we do that? And the answer to that question is very simple. We need to communicate more. We need to educate ourselves. We need to recognize each other. Each person, each entity has a right, an entitlement to something. And because one may have authority to actually do something, or because one has a right to do something, we have to remember that we are not entitled to violate the rights of persons, right? And it's very simple, as I said, the communication is key. We need to start speaking to each other, and I want to assure the public, viewing public, that we have met. I have met with Mr. Vanny Kerwin, the officer in charge of the Community Relations Department, which is also known as the Internal Affairs Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. I met with him at 10 o'clock this morning, and I have been given the assurance once again. This is the second meeting I have had with him in a 3 week period. Initially, I met with him and the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Edwin Martin, and they have given us the assurance that justice will prevail. They have given the assurance that things will get better. And this is what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that things would get better. I'm hoping that the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique will be able to one day say that we do trust the system when it comes to our police officers, right? We are all human beings and we all need each other, right? Many times a police might be in some sort of dilemma, and it may be a civilian that would have to come to the aid of the police officer. And many times civilians who face unfortunate situations are aided by police officers, members of the Royal Grenada Police Force. So we do need each other, and we need to recognize that. I'd like to take a moment of silence, Ingram, um, for the next minute. Well, let's say for the next 30 seconds or so, Ingram. Could you give us a countdown for like 30 seconds? I'd like to take a moment of silence, so the persons who are viewing can say a prayer. Not only did we lose a gentleman who um, was once a law-abiding citizen, Mr. Regis, the father of a gentleman who was shot in the arm. But we do have a police officer, a female police officer, right now in the general hospital who has received some stab wounds from that deceased gentleman. And I understand she's in critical condition and she is trying to survive, So I want to take a moment of silence to, so we can say our personal prayers for these two individuals and for the country as well, right? Because this is not something that we would want to repeat itself. In all my years in Grenada, this is the first time that I have heard of a situation where um, stabbing would have taken place. Very unfortunate situation. So, Ingram, do you have it queued? If we could take about
Countdown.
30 seconds.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we can do. Okay, so I do hope that the female officer recovers. I do hope that we do not have any more situations such as these. And with God, all things are possible. Things could get better. This is a situation that I have been afraid that would happen. Many times, persons in Grenada have been coming to the recognition that justice sometimes is too slow. The hands of justice takes forever and forever to come around. And when we look at the neighboring islands such as Trinidad, um, most of the crime that happens in Trinidad um, is as a result of much corruption within even that police force. And I could speak about the TTPS and the PCA and so forth, because I have made contact with them. I have dealt with them directly, and many persons in Trinidad over there, they're just 30 minutes away. They would say to you that, you know, um, it's best I do something on my own because it makes no sense waiting on those in authority or the police or whatever the case is. And this is not something that we want happening in Grenada, but it was very evident that a situation like this would have occurred because many are frustrated. We're not only speaking about COVID and police misconduct and so on. We're also speaking about persons having labor issues and all kinds of issues, all the underpayments and so on. There's much frustration, and it can only take just one small situation, and this situation that this deceased gentleman was faced with was not even as small. And what actually happened in Graham is that based on what we were told, based on what was brought to the media, there was a young man who was smoking marijuana, and he tried to evade some police officers by running, and they actually pursued him, and they shot him in the arm. Now, according to the news report that his father gave, the deceased gentleman is the father of the young man who was shot. And this young man was a former national swimmer for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martin. Now, those who may not know, marijuana is actually illegal in Grenada, right? That is something that we aim to change. There are many benefits, but that is a different conversation, right? Now, those officers pursued the young man, shot him in the arm. He was brought to the general hospital. On the night of the incident, on a local news station, the gentleman's father, who was much broken, we could tell that the news clip was chopped up a bit, it was edited a bit to not show that the gentleman was actually crying. He was shedding tears for the situation that his son found himself in and what had occurred to his son. As any parent would feel knowing that you brought up a child and this is what has happened. My son was just shot by police. The reality of that is very disturbing. It brings out maybe sometimes the worst of emotions, sometimes the best. We never know. It depends on the mentality of the person. And this is something that we need to recognize as human beings, as citizens of this country and citizens of the world. Many persons will react differently to a situation, right? I listened to the gentleman who is now deceased in Graham, and he said that he struggled to bring his children up, to bring them to school, to send them to not only educate themselves, but to get the skill of swimming and so on. And this is what has happened. You know, it was very sad looking at this gentleman. Um, very sad indeed. And only to find out approximately 10 days later, this man would have taken a knife, stabbed two police officers. At this point, we do not know if it was a random stabbing or what. Um, at this point, the investigation is going on. I do hope, that it would be fair. Based on the communication I had, I must say that um, I am confident that, things would happen the way that they should in the best interest of justice. Also, in Graham, what I would like to say is that I am aware that one lady called one of the radio stations, one of the local radio stations today, and she said that she was actually there when the shooting took place. And the information that was provided by that lady, who claimed to be a witness of the unfortunate situation of fatal shooting of that gentleman, the information that she related to the radio announcer and to the listening public, very disturbing. Um, and basically, what she said was that she described a situation that could only tantamount to excessive force. But if persons do not come forward and provide the necessary information, the necessary evidence that is needed to prosecute a police officer who may or may not have done something wrong. For instance, excessive force, police misconduct, or whatever the case is. if the witnesses do not come forward and present that evidence, that information through the proper channels, then nothing will happen in this country. No justice will be served. Ingram, do I make myself clear there?
I think we want to back on. I think I'm the altercation between the father and the police.
Mhm,
What caused? Was there any comments? Because I know the police sometimes can be quite disrespectful. We've seen evidence of this.
mhm,
What was said between the father and the two officers? Because if you just run up and just stab two officers,
mhm,
it doesn't make sense. But if
mhm,
something is said and is hostile, if the father is has been faced with hostility, or there's a lack of insensitivity, which has been shown across the island by these
mhm,
police officers, not all of them. There's some good police officers, but there's some
mhm,
downright rude ones too.
mhm,
So if it was an unfortunate situation where the father angry and upset and emotional, as you would be, as any
mhm,
father would be, meets two police officers or one police officer that has just got no, like, we've seen a police officer already on a previous
mhm,
show,
mhm,
pretty disrespectful. So if you've got a disrespectful police officer who feels that they can throw their weight around and has been throwing their weight around and has been abusive, and then you've got this situation with the father, that's a recipe for disaster.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the thing
it
that's
is.
is the
It,
second
it,
thing, go ahead.
mhm. It is a recipe for disaster. And the key ingredients, as I said, is lack of communication, lack of training, and so on. Um, Today in the meeting that I had with Mr. Kerwin,
Mhm.
I was informed
By the way,
that after the shooting, yeah,
before you
go
do
ahead.
that, thank you, Mr. Kerwin, for meeting with Mr. Maitland. We do appreciate you.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Right. So, I was informed by Mr. Cohen that he personally visited the family the day after or the evening of the shooting of the son. So he personally visited them and assured them that an investigation would be carried out in favor of justice. Um, Now, based on what I understand, Ingram, what I understand happened on that unfortunate day, that most unfortunate day, when that gentleman was fatally shot. I understand that he was informed that his son's arm would have been amputated due to the bullet in the arm, which we now know is not going to happen. And I believe it was at that point that the gentleman actually acted out of character. As I said, different mentalities would actually determine the personality of someone and the action of someone, the reaction to any situation. And at that point, upon hearing that, based on what I understand, this is where the gentleman reacted in such a manner that put his life and the life of others at risk, which is something that we are trying to avoid. This is why we are here. This is why we report cases of police misconduct and brutality and so on, so that persons, including myself, will not feel that vigilante justice is
Okay.
the only answer.
Okay. Mr. Varani Conway and whoever it is who's in charge of the police force and whoever is in charge of police training, clearly there is a lack of customer service training skills within
Mhm,
the police force. That is evident. That's not you got a few good police officers, but it seems that you've got more bounties than you do actually good police officers. If that is the case, then there needs to be a full retraining program to address such manners as such situations. And on top of that, there needs to be severe punishment for those police officers that have been that have not been acting according to the law. And that needs to be visible to show that people can have faith within the police about the police force, because there's a distinct lack of faith in the police force at the moment on the island.
You
So
know, and
the training would be a good start. What happens with this case now and the police officer? So first of all, they shot the young man in his arm. They said because he had marijuana, he was trying to run away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you see, the thing is, I'm just responding to our message. The thing is, now the lack of training has been an issue for a very long time. And today in the meeting,
when you say wait, when you say a very long time, what are we talking? Months, years?
No, years. I'm speaking about years. It has been raised. I have personally raised the issue of the lack of training since Commissioner Winston James was there. So that's a very long time. Right? Now, persons may say that Earl Maitland only raises issues but does not provide any solutions. And I have provided many solutions. I have over the years given the pronouncement of these inefficiencies in the force, which have obvious, very obvious solutions. For instance, if I was to say that, you know, this is a problem that an officer cannot disarm a man with a knife without using a gun, then common sense would say that that officer should be trained in self-defense or some kind of tactics, martial arts, or whatever. Now, I have over the years informed the RGPF that there is a gentleman in Graham, a good friend of ours, Master Melvin Coutain, who is a black belt master. He's a master in martial arts. And he is willing to assist the Royal Grenada Police Force to train our officers to protect us and to protect themselves. Because situations that they encounter on a daily basis, I can only imagine how hard and how troubling, how frightening it would be. But what would happen in Graham if they are properly trained, then that fear would be eliminated.
Well,
Right then.
what about reducing the amount of guns that these police officers have? And let's say that only properly trained police officers with a certain level of training are allowed to carry a police gun. That way, these police officers that are running around like John Wayne, they'd stop that John Wayne behavior, because they'd have to now use their mouth and communicate better. And not feel, I've got a gun in my pocket, I'm immortal. Take the gun away from them and force them to talk to the public in a decent manner. Because when that gun's taken away from them, they ain't going to be so mighty. And then those people who have got guns in their hand, that there's a stiffer fine for those who use the gun illegally.
You see, we have
Does they need to do these police officers that are walking the street need to be carrying a gun? Is Grenada that dangerous? Not like America.
Yeah, you see, we have a comment here. The said man stabbed a police woman how many times? The police life was in danger. Now, I guess that person came in a bit late, you know, based on the conversation, the essence of the conversation. But we would like to assure Mr. Ron Charles, yes, we do understand, and we did have a moment of silence for that police officer. We did say our own personal prayers, and we do invite you to do the same, hoping that our prayers will be answered and that police officer will recover. And I do understand that she is a bit new to the Royal Grenada Police Force. She's a new member who would have come out to serve the public, Grenada, keep the peace, and so on. So we are aware, and we are saying that we do understand that her life was in danger. What we're actually speaking about now is that 6 months in training school may seem a lot to the persons that are there, but how much are they really learning? What kind of self-defense or classes or education do they have? Right? Now there has been word on the street, you know, where one officer who was attached to I believe the treasury or wherever, that officer ran inside and closed the door. That is what the word on the street is. And many times the streets are correct. I mean, I don't know, but that is the word on the street. Now, if that is true, that actually happened, and an ex-police officer looked at a female police officer being stabbed and ran inside to save his own life, what does it say about the training of that officer? When we speak of training, we do not only mean that officers should be educated on the laws, which they definitely should be, because the law, the Police Act says that all police officers upon joining the force should know all the laws of Grenada, particularly the police regulations, so they would not overstep their boundaries and violate the rights of others, right? Of the persons they serve and so on. But when we speak about training, we mean mental conditioning as well. Now, if one is properly trained, 6 months would not be sufficient time for a person to become a police officer. We are speaking not only of our lives being in the hands of police officers, but their lives being at risk. Situations like these, and many times, as we always say, we need the police officers and they need us.
Mhm.
If I have a situation right now where a man came to me with a cutlass or a gun, depending on the mood I'm in, I would call the police and ask them to come and deal with the situation. And then in turn, their life would be in danger, right? Or they might be passing in front of a bank, although we did not have that many situations where banks were robbed and gas stations were robbed. We do understand that police officers have a lot to deal with. So this is why we are saying, seeing that our officers are so important to us, we would like to ensure that they are selected properly, that they are trained properly, so
Okay.
they can function efficiently.
I want to follow up on that comment I made about the disarming the police officers with guns. But we can give them stun guns, or what they call we've got in England where we can stun
Uh-huh.
pepper spray and stun
Uh-huh.
gun.
Yeah,
That is, we're not killing anybody. Well, we can use a
yeah,
stun gun.
yeah,
Pepper spray, stun gun.
hmm,
Nobody's going to die that way.
yeah.
But we've got guns and bullets flying
Hmm,
around.
hmm.
Death.
Now, if Master Kutain was here, and I was hoping that he would send a message to join in. Master Kutain would normally ask the question, "Where is the church?" Right? And you know, in situations like these, in situations that we face, there is a deafening silence from the churches and so on, and all those human rights organizations that are being paid to do jobs and so forth. Where are they? I'm thinking, how could we prevent a next tragedy like this? How could we do so? And as I said,
Ask Mr. Kerwin, how
mhm,
many more deaths
mhm,
the Grenadians have to endure before there
mhm,
is change? How
mhm,
many more deaths?
mhm.
Why
Yeah,
should the innocent Grenadians suffer due
mhm,
to incompetency and a lack of training?
mhm. Ingram, and today, this morning, he has acknowledged and he say he would raise it with the Commissioner of Police to get Master Melvin Coutin on board to train those
No, no,
officers,
no, listen, listen,
right?
listen, 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 listen. The one thing I know about Grenadians, they love to talk, but this
Mhm,
isn't a time for talking. This is a time for action.
mhm,
Stop the talking because you've been talking for a long while. And
mhm.
while you've been talking, all these incidents, it's not just one incident. How many shows have we done
We
with
have did
the Grenada police?
numerous,
And we have
numerous shows.
over and over and over and over and over again. Let's stop with the talk. Let's see action.
Mhm.
Let's see what's going to happen with this situation. Let's see change. Let's see something different.
What I would say, Ingram, based on my experience, um, I am seeing some changes. I'm seeing some changes. Um,
But hold on.
for
And when you
uh,
talk about changes, are we
mhm.
talking about changes that coincide with this with the new world order? Where we're talking about things like
No, 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 no,
no,
no,
wait. So
no.
because they're making changes because it suits their agenda, and they're being controlled. They're being told by America, this is what you're gonna have to do on your little island.
Nah, no, no, not changes like those.
So you have to be clear about
Um,
this.
Changes. Let me clear it up. For instance, for the past 2 years, um, I was unable to meet with the commissioner of police. I was unable to meet with Mr. Cohen. Now, in 3 weeks, I have met with the commissioner. I have also met with Mr. Vanny Cohen. The commissioner and the police force have announced that body cameras would be installed. Right now, Ingram,
But
before
hold
you
on,
go on,
hold on.
before you go on,
Body cams and under martial law. What?
no, but Ingram, now what I'm saying is, although it might not be the full solution to the problem. It's a start seeing that they are actually listening to the recommendations that we are making. Because before, you and I can say that it was actually falling on deaf ears. Now, as I said in Graham, we have a lot of persons who witness things, who witness police misconduct,
Yeah.
police brutality, and
Mhm.
so forth, but they do not come forward. They do not come forward when it counts.
Have you asked Mr. Kerwin? Okay, I noticed we've been meeting the last couple of weeks. We've been meeting regularly.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
Mhm,
What is the end game from this? We're meeting. That's
mhm,
nice and cozy.
mhm,
As I said, Grenadians like to talk. We like to
mhm,
talk.
mhm,
But what is the end result of this? What do you? What, we're meeting. We're
mhm,
talking. We're
mhm,
open up conversation. That's great. That's fine. But that conversation doesn't bring back people from the grave.
mhm.
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
I understand. I
So, so,
understand.
so as much as I appreciate, do appreciate the conversations that happen between yourself and Mr. Cohen,
Mhm,
that is not any consolation to that grieving mother
mhm.
or
A
that grieving
wife.
father
Yeah.
or that grieving family.
Mhm,
That's not a solution.
mhm,
That was you're talking, but you
mhm,
were talking before and not being heard.
mhm. Uh-huh. Now, Ron Charles is asking. My question is, do you think that the police was justified to protect themselves against an unprovoked attack against them by that individual?
No,
Now, did
I,
I answer?
all I'm going to say is this:
Uh-huh.
to say I wasn't there, so I can't say it was provoked or it was
Yeah,
unprovoked. But
yeah.
I know that we've seen situations previously by police officers
Yeah.
saying things to stir people up and get
Mhm.
them more angry and hostile. And
Yeah.
if that was a situation that was confrontational, he was confrontational anyway because I felt about his son, and the police officer was rude and abrupt and it was disrespectful, then you can't call that unprovoked.
Mhm.
Or the scenario of, well, this guy was completely mad, and yes, the police have to defend themselves. So there's a such thing as self-defense. And absolutely, if this man was, you know, you have to defend yourself. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
But
Now, to answer the question of Ron Charles.
Mr.
Now,
Malcolm Tame,
as Ingram has said, you know, I was not there, but I do know someone that was there. I received a message, and tomorrow I would get a definite answer to what has transpired. Right?
Mm.
Tomorrow I would get that from a very reliable source. Um, the thing is, there's an ongoing investigation. From my perspective, would I say that it was an unprovoked attack? Um, I would not consider it really an unprovoked attack. For instance, that gentleman's son was shot in the arm just 10 days ago, right? So was it really unprovoked? That gentleman found out that someone wearing a uniform shot his son in the arm. Now, if the bullet went 3 inches or 2 inches to the right, that young man would have been shot in the heart or in the chest, right? And he could have died. Now, based on what we said earlier, the different mentalities of persons would allow them to react differently.
Yes.
Now, did this gentleman lose it when he found out that his son was shot? And just the tip of the iceberg, just to cap it off, just to bust the bottle, he was told that his son's arm would most likely be amputated. Now, would I really call that unprovoked? I wouldn't really call it unprovoked, because it was someone in uniform. And based on the relationship that we have right now and what we're trying to fix, what we're trying to mend, people in Grenada, you will continuously hear persons saying that you can't win the police, you cannot trust the police are not like us. This is the reality of things, and we need to be realistic. So, if one officer was to shoot someone in the arm, all officers would get, well, not all, but a majority of officers, once you're wearing the uniform, you would get the blame for what one bad apple has done. And this is why we continue to not only recommend but make demands of the Royal Grenada Police Force to ensure that when these bad seeds are found, that they are disciplined, that they face the full force of the law, and the public becomes aware of what has happened, so that persons like myself, Ingram, Master Kutin, and the general public would not say that nothing comes out of cases where officers are um, um, committing crimes and so forth, right? Um, my question: do you think now, based on the law, to answer a next part of the question, based on the law, the Constitution of Grenada, which people do not read, and we like to encourage people to educate themselves, and that is where true empowerment comes when persons can educate themselves. Education cannot be taken away. What it can do is be passed on to generations of people to empower those people, right? Now, based on the Constitution of Grenada, Chapter 1, Section 2, Part 2, I believe, um, or it says basically that if a person takes a life of a next person, right, in defense of that person from violence, then it's not considered as murder. That is what the Constitution says. It speaks to that, right? So we don't even have to go into the criminal code or wherever. It also speaks about taking the life of a person who is trying to escape from being a prisoner and so forth. So let us see what happens with the investigation. As I said, I would like to welcome all witnesses to go to the Royal Grenada Police Force. I'm sure they will be discreet. I'm sure your lives would not be at risk. Pass on the information so that the officers at the CRD would have sufficient information to deal with what has transpired last Friday accordingly. If they do not have the information, guess what? They would have to take the word of the officer who shot the gentleman, right? So please go forward. Ron Charles said, "You are correct. There should be justice for his son. But on the other hand, we have laws, and he cannot take the law into his hand. That means we will have a lawless state. Justice should not be denied, whether it is police or civilian. That is my take. And I do fully agree with Ron Charles. We do have laws. But the problem is, Ron, many of our laws, although they are on books, although we may have police officers who have the best interests of civilians and police officers and everyone, the state of Grenada, although we have police officers who have the best interest of us, right, and of the law, and they do their best to execute the laws, there are always those who will prevent the laws from prevailing. There are always those who will pervert justice. We don't even have to look at the Police Act. Let us just move a little from this situation, and let us deal with the Physical Planning Act that was violated by the gentleman who built the Silver Sand structure. Now, although there was the law to protect and preserve the beach and the space from the high water mark to the land where citizens like myself and tourists could go and relax on the beach, right? 55 meters between the high water mark and the public land, not the public land, sorry, and private lands. Now, the gentleman who built Silver Sands was able to erect a building within 8 feet of the high water mark. At some points, 8 feet. Now, that law that is on the book was broken, it was violated, right? And our Prime Minister, our Minister of National Security, who was or is, I'm not sure if he still is, was the Minister of Physical Planning, came to the aid of the gentleman who violated that Physical Planning Act law and said the gentleman made a mistake. Now, if we have laws such as that being broken by persons from who have money, and our Prime Minister is acting as their attorney, then we have other laws that are being broken and covered up. The police force is not an immaculate institution, right? Let us not pretend that that is the situation. When we have persons who have for the last 10 years been struggling to come to the comprehension of how Oscar Bartholomew lost his life on that fateful day at the St. David police station. When we have persons who are struggling to understand how is it that Cameron Peters lost his life in CID, and persons are struggling to find out, to come to the understanding or at peace with how is it that a gentleman who was mentally ill was shot by police officers in 2016 at Mungpanasas, in the junction down there in the bottom of the hill by Pam. Persons are struggling to understand how did that happen, right? This is why persons believe, some persons would believe that it is time to take the law into their own hands. And anytime someone looks at this program, we do not promote any sort of violence against the police or against anybody. But what we say is stand for your rights and go to the police and give your statements and stand for justice, right? We do not want a situation where we have persons in the Ministry of Labor, such as Peter David, Oliver Joseph, who was there before 2018, and Cyrus Griffith, and that permanent secretary that is there, Lima Frederick, breaking the laws of Grenada, the same laws that Ron Charles is speaking about that we have for the country. It is continuously being broken by these people, even in the Ministry of Labor. So every public institution that we have in Grenada, we see laws being broken over and over and over. And this is where people become frustrated and they believe, you know what, might have to become a vigilante to be heard. I might have to become a vigilante to get some justice in this country. It is very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. The father said it himself before he was shot on the evening of the shooting of his son. He said, someone has to stop those police. And this is what he said. Did he say it with anger? Right? Ingram, could I play this video so we could look at the father in the interview?
Yeah, please send it over. Send it over. You got the video?
I'm trying to get this. Um,
Share
give me.
screen.
I need to pull it up. Now, when this gentleman spoke, there was no anger. There was hurt. There was pain. There was the pain of a father who raised a son and did not expect. Who expects their son to be shot in the arm by a police officer? Right? Our police also are I do understand it that they are frustrated. They are not properly trained to deal with mental situations. They are not, just as our prisons, the guards, they are not trained to deal with persons of mental instability to come up there, right? But the state continues to put that pressure on everyone. They have to deal with everything, although they're not trained. So one of the recommendations I also made today is that, you know what, we should have in different stations somebody, a psychologist sitting in the stations. So if an officer receives a call, listen, this gentleman is acting as if he is crazy. This gentleman is a known crazy person, then that psychologist would accompany the police, because many times, many situations do not need to be faced with guns and bullets and pepper spray and handcuffs, right? Communication is key, right? Ingram, Master Kutain is here. Master Kutain, how are you? Let me try to look for the video for the gentleman. Master Kutain,
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay.
now,
I just coming from working with some kids. And I see you send
yeah,
this for me.
yeah. Now, Master Kutain, a very quick question, a very quick question. As a black belt and martial arts expert who lives in Grenada, right? Who deals with youth and so on. Now, if you, someone who is trained, right? Someone who is trained to deal with situations which the police officers faced on Friday, and a gentleman attacked you with a knife. Could you disarm that gentleman with your two hands? Seeing that you're a trained black belt martial arts expert, could you disarm that man that has a knife without using a gun? Yes
Yeah.
or no? Yes or no, Master Kuti?
I could, but it depends.
On what?
It depends.
On what?
Um, First to begin, you have to determine whether the man attacked the person and he happened to injure one person first, and then he come on to you next, and you get hurt. You have no other choice but to pull whatever it is to defend yourself. It depends.
Mhm.
It depends. If somebody attack you
No,
without
Master
surprise,
Kuti, can you hear me? Can you
yes,
hear me?
yes,
Right. No, I'm
yes, I'm
speaking
hearing.
about you specifically. About you specifically. If
I could
I
defend,
was to walk up, pardon?
I could defend myself if somebody attacked me with a knife. But it depends on how
Without
they do it.
using a gun.
But it depends on how the person do it.
Now, right now, the second question, seeing that you can defend yourself without killing somebody, right? Could you teach our officers to do the same, to disarm someone that has a cutlass or a knife or a stone or whatever without taking their life? Could you do that?
Yeah, it could have, I could. But again, it have circumstances. That case early, that situation, the officer defend himself because far as I understand, the individual, which was a woman, I think is 7. How much time she gets stabbed? You hearing me?
Well, based on what yes, I can hear you. Based on what we were told, the amount of stabs, the total between the male and female police officer amounted to 9 stabs
Okay.
in all.
Yeah.
How much
So how much
individually?
stab the woman got? And who gets
I
stabbed
am not.
first?
The information was not released. How much
That is
she got individually?
that is important. Is that different if somebody attack you mentally? This man trip off. Okay? Me and you, there's a lot of things happening there, right?
Yeah.
I could get vexed now. And in the moment I get vexed, I could pelt a blow and take you out. And they're going to charge me for murder. But in the state I was in with the vexation, mentally I trip off. I went mad. So vexation is a form of madness. People trip off every second, every 2 seconds, every day. And Grenada right now, people tolerance level right now must be about 99%. This
Okay.
man trip off. This man trip off.
No one.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this question.
Intolerance level.
Yeah, intolerance level. No, but let me ask you this question. If you are sitting down with Mr. Varney Kerwin and you're going to talk about, or to the commission, you're going to talk to them about how you can implement change for a better Royal Grenada Police Force. How would you implement that change? What would be your, for example, what would you present to the police officers? What would you say to the police force? What would you say to them?
First to begin, I'll recommend conflict resolution. Grenada, Ingram.
Yes. Go ahead.
Grenada have a problem, right? Grenada
Yeah.
had a revolution. They line up a whole cabinet, a whole government ministers against a wall and execute them. Did they ever deal with conflict resolution? There's a lot of persons lost their life up there, who lost their arm, who lost family member they never saw. And up to today, nobody cannot say what happened. No, there's persons who went in prison and released, and the same set of people come back in leadership position, leading the same set of people who you persecute the family, and you can't even give an answer what happened to them. So that is an issue. That is a conflict at one. Now, there's several incidents I could call since I come back home here. There's one guy called Zuti, where an officer leaned out of his vehicle or in the back of a van and shoot him in the back on a motorbike. I don't think that ever was dealt with, or how it was dealt with, or what happened with that case. There is a next incident it could be about 6 or 7 years ago, with a guy somewhere in Victoria with some gun in a house, and they went down there, and I think a police officer lost his life. And what I understand from the report, the bullet they find in the police officer, you're surprised to hear the answer with that. So which meaning there is an innocent man again that gone. And there's several other incidents. There is a history with these incidents. And it comes back again to training physically and training spiritually. Okay? Now, in America, I make that point this morning because on the radio I was talking about, and Grenada, there's a lot of people talking about pray. And you know me and that. I, as a person, study theology. I had level 2 in theology. I could have been a pastor if I want. Okay? But I want to study religion and history. And if you don't know your history, you don't know where you're going, you don't know what happened with you. These set of religion people in Grenada, all these pastors and all these set of people, is a set of people who fail in life, and they put up themselves and go and study to be a pastor, study theology, and they put up themselves. But these people don't know the hell they're about. Okay? Because the churches, you need the churches in Grenada. When you travel in the poorest part of Grenada, you watch the size of building. And these people is getting money, getting favors from the government and institutions, and getting all kind of things. And they're not doing anything within this community. Okay? Now, Conflict resolution, and as I tell you, it go back to America recently with the Black Lives for the Floyd George story, where the police officer lead down on the head and the people was up in arms. Donald Trump sending the military inside there, or National Guard, or whatever you call them. What the police did, the head of the police, he go down on his knees and he asked for forgiveness for his fellow police officer, for the FBI and all these people for what they have been doing to black people, and they're sorry and they apologize immediately. When you watch the people and them the face change. They converse, the people sit down and they start to talk. Then they hug up each other and they start to dance. Then the police officer and the soldiers with the people start walking in the street. Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Okay? Now, all of us have to live in this place. The police is, as Earl said earlier, is part of us. They are family. Okay? When a man have a gun in his hand, he feels he's 10 feet tall. But in a situation like that, what happened here, as Earl said, was the talk about amputation of the youth man arm. If you listen to the clip on the news, the man said, and I come back again to these people in social service and all these set of people, and I tell you, I disappointed in these people and them. Because did these people reach out to this man? I don't know. You have this man, Dr. Pancho, and all these set of people collecting a set of money. When you go in this office and you watch people, did they reach out to this man? The man said on national television, it is not going down so. He said this, the police officer need to stop doing this thing. He said he heard his son say, officer, he fall down from running. Officer, you're going to shoot me. One said, shoot him in the leg. This is what the man said. The man cried. People go say, well, he's a CC. The man cry. Don't take that for granted. Okay? No. The man go in the hospital, watch his child lie down on the bed. And then the doctor come and tell him the child might lose his hand. With the man with vexation, he trip off. He go down in the town. He meet these two persons. I don't know. I was not there. But this lady gets stabbed. And I'm sorry, this had to happen to this woman. Okay? And why Earl saying she's a new officer, she's new to the force or whatever it is. Look what happened to the woman. Because of neglect. If people keep on complaining and saying, man, watch, in your brain, somebody, I tell you that on this program already, somebody on this is and on this is. And every time you talk, they say, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. What do you think will happen with you after a period of time? This is what there's a lot of people walking around this place and they're mentally ill, they're sick. They're sick. There's nobody to talk to because according to what party you're in and who party you're in and who this one and this one don't like you, like me, I'm one of the most hated man around because why I outspoken and I can't help it. I grew up in Trinidad. So people hate you because you're outspoken, but outspoken because why? I take time to learn. I didn't go, I went to university, yes, St. George's University. I study conflict resolution, I study art, I study European history, I study biblical history. Right. So they look at me now, who is this man he talking to? Because why? I have 5 surgeries and who are 7 and who are 8. So people like me so can't talk to them. But the ending up of the day, the last time he was here, and you mentioned this all boils to health and safety. You have 3 branches in life. You have your physical life, your mental life, and your spiritual life. Physically, yes, your man could train and apprehend a man and disarm him. The English police is good at that. Baton training and all these sort of things. But
what you're talking about there is relevant. What you're talking about is health and well-being.
Yes.
Maybe health and well-being is what Grenada needs.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. They need this kind of thing. You can't just go about beating up on people and big men. Not everybody. And you see this thing was started. That's something that started. That is a different level it take. You can't, if you keep on pushing people back against a wall, they're going to attack you. As for me, I hear an art today on SIAP and I get upset because I work hard to prepare my document and the National Training Agency and many others take my document with Grace Lutheran and whoever it is, and you hear these people create a program, and I am not working. So there's a conflict to me. You're preventing me from living. You're preventing me from doing something for this country. This man's son was training people for free. His daughter, his next son. What you think they will continue doing it? They lost their father. You know what? It's to bring a child, okay, from 1 year to 17 years to graduate from school. It's over 300,000 or more because cost of living in this place high, like that, tell you, like them bombers. They used to bomb Iraq. Okay? Then the government might spend about 80 or how much $1,000 a year for free education on a child. And to come up for police, just take a bullet and shoot him just so, man. And people talking about God. This is thing people need to sit down and dissect it, break it up, and try to see, well, what really happened here? How you could have gone and just shoot a man just so the man didn't attack you? The officer was attacked, so he defended himself. But you plot and shoot a man on the ground there, so? And the next one telling you shoot him in the leg for what? Smoking a spliff? When the white man in 1930, people must go and Google and research how marijuana become illegal. A white man who saw the days when rhythm and blues and jazz was coming about and how black people are so talented. And he gonna write up his thing and bring it to the Congress and they pass it. And then people make marijuana illegal. Marijuana is a black man drugs. How much man in prison for smoking marijuana and chopping anybody? A man might be in prison for selling marijuana. But you're giving a man, the same system is giving a man a license to sell alcohol, and a man will sit down in a shop, wholly drinking alcohol and go home and kill wife, dog, pig, donkey, everything, and get up next morning and say he didn't do it. In a black man, in this time and age, you locking up a man for a spliff, man? Even said this.
You know, Master Kutain, and that is something I have a lot of difficulty understanding. You know, because as you said, and as we all know, I have never seen somebody smoke a marijuana joint and get violent, but I've seen people drinking alcohol all over the place, getting violent, endangering their lives because they walking in the middle of the road and so forth. But yet still, the government of the day has alcohol legal because they're collecting 300% tax on alcohol, right? Now the thing is, Master Kutain, the man that has the authority to change it sat in his seat and said to the people of Grenada, that man assumed the Minister of Youth just a few weeks ago. That man, none other than Keith Mitchell, said, "We have more important things to do. We have people in shirt and tie interfering with little people's daughter and this and that." But that man has authority to make things happen. Just as when he decided, you know what, he wants to pass a law to prohibit people from not wearing seat belts. And he passed it because it is $1,000 fine to not wear a seatbelt in Grenada. Now, the Prime Minister has that authority, but instead of doing something, he sits on the TV and speaks as though he is in favor of allowing people who have marijuana to not be arrested. But when I listen to this man has to be an idiot because he is basically telling people, as the Prime Minister of Grenada, that it is okay to partake in something that is illegal. What he needs to do, if he has an issue with it, is go and decriminalize marijuana, not tell people or tell police officers to break the law. If the law says it is illegal, then it is illegal until he changes the law. It's as simple as that, Master Kutain. What he's doing is playing games with the lives of persons. It's as simple as that, right? You cannot be Prime Minister and telling people, making the police force look like if they're doing something bad when the law says to go and run down people because marijuana is illegal. That's what the law is telling them to do. So what he needs to do is go and change the laws and stop making it seem as though he is the savior of all persons that are smoking marijuana in Grenada. Right? It's as simple as that. Now, those officers need to use their discretion. They do need to use their discretion because the thing is, how do you shoot someone who is not a threat, someone who is running away? How do you shoot someone that is running away, someone that is unarmed? That is a problem. We have a comment from Ron Charles. I think what is going on between the police and civilians in Grenada now is distrust and disregard for a segment of the population, which is very true, Ron Charles. There's no instance I can remember here in Grenada where rich people children get shot or killed by the police. Neither can I, Ron. I cannot remember such a situation. The majority of persons who have been shot by police, they came from, you know, less financially fortunate families, based on what I remember as well. In conclusion, we need the government to elevate and re-educate the less fortunate in our country. We may see some differences, right? Maybe I do agree that maybe the government needs to stop having people living hand to mouth, coming for like a $20 here and there, and start telling them about their laws. You know, we have some other persons in authority who are telling people, the people of Grenada, and this is where misinformation is a problem, where we have people telling people the police can't do this, they cannot arrest you without a warrant, and they cannot do that, and so forth. And what that is doing is actually damaging what we're trying to build here, a better relationship, a more educated population. The police can't arrest you if you are committing a crime. Right now, think about it. If a man is standing in town stabbing 5 people, is a police officer going to wait until he stabs 10 more people, trying to go to a magistrate to get a warrant to arrest the gentleman who is stabbing somebody? No. That man is committing a crime, so they have a right to arrest that person. Now, many times, police officers, because they have that authority to arrest and detain and question people for 48 hours, many times they take advantage of the situation. Many times, many people feel like, you know what, the big stick policy is a problem, right? They believe that they can continue to just push around people and so on. And that is where the distrust Ron Charles is speaking about, that we continue to speak about those persons that are abusing that authority that they have. We need to get them out of the police force and keep all the good persons that are there. But as I said, if the citizens of Grenada who are aware of crimes that have been committed which pervert justice and the country, if the good citizens continue to remain silent, then we have nothing to work with. We have no evidence to prosecute or remove any corrupt entity from the police force, and it would continue to happen over and over and over and over. Then we would see 5 more people in the streets, maybe not with knives, maybe with forks and cutlasses, just attacking police officers. How could we avoid that? Yes, we could avoid it. We could avoid it by doing what we have to do. According to the laws of Grenada, as citizens, we have we have an obligation to report crimes, right? We have an obligation to honor morality in our country. If we see a police officer slap a man in the face, we have a right, whether it is justifiable or not justifiable, we have a right to go to the CRD and say, listen, this is what I saw. Was this reasonable force? Was it not? We need to hold all our officers accountable. And one more issue that I have, it is the amount of deaths that we have had in Grenada. it doesn't only fall within the bounds of the police force. It's us as well. We kill each other, and then we want to fight the police force, or we want to fight for America. We want to stand up and say Black Lives Matter with George Floyd. But then we have had how many murders for the year? 15 or 14 murders for the year, where we killed ourselves. We killed our own people. Going to the rum shops, drinking rum, getting intoxicated, getting in a pile of high talk, and just reacting in ways that we would not normally do. Right? People need to walk away. People need to learn to walk away and start communicating better. Right? I have had personal situations of my own where I had to remove myself from conversations and so forth. One can only one might not even recognize or imagine the level of ignorance that comes from the mouth of certain persons that are affiliated with the leading administration. Right? So sometimes I myself have to remove myself from conversations. We all need to do the same, right? We have officers that are rogue, and then we have citizens who are rogue and causing a lot of distress to the people of Grenada, right? We all need to do our part. We all need to do our part.
Well,
No, no. I would ask, and I would ask the question, and I'm going to go straight into the point that Melvin said. The church is meant to be a place of peace. Okay, it's meant to be a place of peace. That is a place where I believe the church needs to start opening up clinics for people who are not in a stable place, not in a good place. That's what the church is for. That's what they're for. Even if it's for people who don't believe, to open a centers there for counselors to be there to do their work. More life coaches. That's what's needed on the island. People can go and sit down and have someone to talk to.
As I said, Master Kutain is correct. Where is the church? Did the bishop went on to the media, the local media, and he asked the teachers when they were protesting for something that they were entitled to, which is their pensions. When the teachers were protesting against the injustice brought against them by the leading administration, the present administration, for their pensions, the bishop came and he said, you know what, all teachers need to be more, whatever it is he said, Now, where is the bishop in all of this? We
well,
have people being shot, being hung. I mean, the cathedral in town, there's a security guard there. The doors are closed. The doors are closed to the cathedral in town, the Catholic Church. Master Kutain, correct me if I'm correct or not, but there's a security there. I saw him pulling the gate and so on. That is a place of worship. That is a place where we ought to go and find God. We should be able to go and get a sense of peace there. But is it really functioning properly? Is it functioning properly, or would I be treated properly if I was to go there dressed like a vagrant or so forth, or would I be run out? I've seen it many times.
Uh-huh.
I went to the Anglican church and I saw there was a gentleman in St. Paul's who was possibly a vagrant living in a house. His name was Nylon, right? That gentleman, when I was going to church, he came into the church there and he was chased out of the church by the people that go to church every Sunday. So, what are we really doing to make life better? Are we really doing God's work? Is it God's intention just to have us going to church every Sunday at 7 o'clock on time and still treating people like animals? Is it that his intention? Is that what he means by be a brother's keeper? Or love your neighbor as yourself, to treat people like trash? We have a lot to correct. We have a
It's
lot to
because
correct.
it's being accepted and some of these pastors are not being stoned. That is why this nonsense is going on. But it'll cut a time when people lose their patience. I say enough is enough.
but Ingram, right now in Grenada,
Yeah.
people tolerance level is about 99%. I saw
Intolerance.
he
Rather
wanted
Intolerance.
intolerance. Because if
Yeah.
they're patient, you could be right. They are patient because they keep putting up with it. So maybe 99%, you're probably right.
a
With
woman
it.
crying. An officer charged her 350. She said, "Officer, I don't have food in my cupboard. We are
What?
getting money to go and pay for a ticket. Grenada surrounded with water. We done an island. How the hell COVID getting in here? Which meaning your health and safety system or your safety net, it is wrong. Health and safety, every accident you record it. Okay? Every time something happen, you record it. You check. No, a plane. If you listen to the guy in Canada, the guy said he tests and he walk and he was COVID free. Before he leave the country to go on the plane, he was COVID free. He reached on the island, he have COVID. Well, when you're in a plane up there at certain altitude or wherever it is, the oxygen inside of there is being cut off and oxygen circulating just like the AC environment. So you don't know something went going on inside of there, need to be checked on health and safety wise. So if I have to travel, I will get a gas mask or a filter cartridge or some kind of thing because something up there not right. Because several persons saying the same thing. But then the man
Master Kutain, Master
huh?
Kutain, sorry to cut you. My battery is about to cut off. My battery is about to cut off. I just
Okay.
taken about like a minute just to, just to tell the people, the viewers that things are changing slowly but surely. Um, I have met with the Commissioner of Police. I've met with Mr. Vanny Cohen. He has given assurance that things would happen. There are things that have happened, but he has not brought it to the public. So, um, from next week or very soon, a police officer would be representing the Royal Grenada Police Force from the CRD department, the Community Relations Department. They would be coming on to this program and speaking to the people of Grenada. They would inform the people of the powers of the police and the powers of the people, what is expected from each person, from the police and from the citizens, to better the relationships, to actually ensure that we could have a peaceful society, right? So, we welcome everybody onto the program. We want to thank the Royal Grenada Police Force, for the communication, the line of communication that has been opened. I also wanted to say, thank you to Inspector Earl Gawe of the CRD department. Approximately, I believe on Thursday or Friday, I was informed of a situation by a lady who was ill-treated by or ill-spoken to by a police officer. I called the CRD. I spoke to Inspector Earl Gawe. One time, right, almost instantly, she asked for the contact information of that individual. That lady went into the police station today and she was able to give a report. And that is what we want to see. We want to see things happening. And it is happening. So I want to thank Inspector Earl Gawe of the Royal Grenada Police Force and all the other police officers who have been doing their jobs, who have been living up to our expectations.
Yes.
We see you. We understand what you're doing. We see a lot of officers standing in the rain and so on, calling traffic. We appreciate all these little things. We appreciate it. But what hurts us is all the bad that we see going on. We need it to stop.
But remember
Mhm.
all, from on the civilian side,
Uh-huh.
I travel doing the act. I live in Trinidad for years. I even walk. My final course from youth camp was in the Trinidad and Tobago Police College. Okay?
Mhm.
Grenadians don't have respect for the police also.
Mhm.
Next issue.
Mhm. True.
Okay?
Very true. Very true.
Things I see people as be doing police here. It could
Mhm.
never happen outside here.
Very true.
police
And,
to it have some
and
work to be done.
and you see, Master Kuden, the thing is, a lot of what is causing that is a lack of communication, between both parties, right?
Absolutely.
And I will personally hold both parties accountable. But when I would give possibly 40% blame to the civilians. Okay, let me say, yeah, 40% blame to the civilians, 60 to the police, because
No,
the
They
you
should-
can't blame
police officers.
you can't blame the civilians.
Melvin, why I would say that to you, the police are not only expected to do so, but they are being paid to do so, to come up with ways, right,
Wait.
that would better the channels of communication, right?
Earl, the problem come from politicians. The police,
Melvin,
the police,
Melvin,
yeah,
uh-huh.
the
Go ahead.
the police have a work to do.
Mm-hmm,
Okay?
Okay.
There is some persons doing a job where
mm-hmm.
they're not qualified to do it, but because of political friends, they get in
True,
some position and they don't
true,
have no training.
true.
As
Now,
I said, the
yes,
police was trained in conflict resolution because when I was doing the course on conflict resolution, there's a lot of police and teachers was there. Where's them? Are they in the position inside the CRD office there? These police inside of there? Conflict
yeah,
resolution.
and Master Kuten, you see, and I would give them the blame. Remember, these officers would have taken an oath. They
They
would
call
have taken an oath,
politicians.
right?
You might be a good officer,
Look,
friend, but if the leader of the country and others don't favor you and they take you out from the training what you have and then give you a chance, like what they're doing me,
Mm-hmm,
stifling me from what they're doing and Brian Campbell and all of them eating our food. I mostly are preventing me. And they're stifling you from eating our food. Use
mm-hmm.
that money and potential just the same way.
Ingram,
So you
Ingram,
put the square.
Ingram, and Bihari,
No,
and Bihari.
I ain't calling it. I ain't calling it. But the point is, there is
Yeah,
people in the police service trained in certain area, and they're not
true.
given the opportunity to do it.
True, because I mean, we have officers who are hardworking officers, being in the force 16 years, 20 years, 34 years, you name the amount of years, and they have not been promoted. A lot has to do with the politicians, right? A lot has to do with us as the voting public and as the taxpayers, because we allow a lot of things to happen here in this country.
can we look into conflict resolution as part of the show and the laws around conflict resolution? So,
Yes.
so us as Grenadians can understand better what
Mhm.
we're talking about. We're talking conflict
Yes.
resolution. What is conflict resolution, and how does that relate to the Grenada police force?
Mhm.
And how should situations be handled? And when we do get the police officer involved, we need to talk about conflict resolution and in relation to the Grenada civilians and the public, and how they deal with the public, and how they best could deal with the public, as opposed to how they have dealt with the public.
You know what I would recommend anyone who is looking on, if you are aware of someone who's qualified to guide our police officers, right, into that frame of mind where they understand what service is, you
Conflict
know,
management.
we would be happy to make those arrangements.
Well,
So,
there is a
well,
university on this island. All school of
mhm.
medicine. School of medicine. The owner of school of medicine bring a woman by the name of Dr. Green.
I think Mr. I think Earl has gone, so that brings the end to a natural end to the show. Let's see, yeah, I think Earl's gone.
Yeah, battery dead. We need to help all to get a power pack.
We'll talk about that. We'll
Yeah,
definitely talk about that.
anybody listening out there, we need to help him get a power pack.
Absolutely. Right, everybody, thank you so much for watching Grenada Matters. Once again, another interesting show. Please, if you've got any comments, do leave them in the comment section. And if you want to send us and talk to us privately, please do. There's an email at the bottom here. Do send your messages through the email. This is Grenada Matters. Good night, Mr. Melvin. How are you? You all right? You good? How's your night been?
Yeah, well, I just come out and work with some children. Just come home, so I'm going on have some tea and relax myself.
You're looking at meeting. You're looking at food.
And listen to the news. Nah, I'm cutting out eating late at night.
Okay, well, fair enough then.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, bless.
Bless up.
Yeah.